Once I pitched a CEO and he told me, emotion, I don't care about it anymore. I have more than 20 years of experience. Emotion doesn't exist for me. This is emotional cancellation, and it's very harmful. It's nuclear residuals that you put under the ground, and one day it can blow.
Welcome to Beyond the Noise. We are joined today by Dali Gamha, founder and CEO of Psynarios, who left a decade in finance to build something aimed at changing how people actually show up at work, not just how companies talk about it. Welcome.
Hi, Anastasia. Hi, Khurshid. Good to have you on this podcast and to discuss with you about humans at work.
Dali, I'll jump straight in. I was talking to you previously, reading about your work, about the project that you're involved in right now. The first question that came up to me straight away, you had such a great background on finance. This is where you started your career. And most people would call it a safe, successful path. But then you still walked away from it. Could you expand a little bit more and tell us about your story?
Yes, since the beginning, I wanted to have an entrepreneurship experience, and I wanted before to work in my specialty in finance to discover how a company works. The more I advanced in the career, the more I discovered that it's a relationship topic rather than a numbers only topic in finance, and that's how we figured out that I want to go to the leadership, to the behavioral area, and what I learned in finance was very useful for me to develop the company and deploy it.
So if you could talk a little bit more about this, obviously you've invested so much time into the career in finance and you notice these things. So what happened? Something must have happened that something clicked and you said, hold on a minute, this is not right. Or I feel like something needs to be different.
Yeah, absolutely. It was enjoyable. My career in finance was really enjoyable. The client relations, the dynamics in the office, and I saw that the complexity comes generally from humans and not from only processes, and that there are sometimes crises, there are misunderstandings, there are sometimes even conflicts that are not very justified always. And I saw that there is this need. And we had a lot of trainings for development, for upgrading skills, upskilling, reskilling. And in reality, the results were limited every time. And I was personally somehow frustrated with sometimes the content and most of the time with the results. So I started collaborating with HR teams to select providers, identify themes, and even structure some trainings and animate them. And then I saw that the results were the same. We had always three conclusions. Beneficiary managers were happy with the training, but when you ask them, what did you like the most? They say we had an enjoyable moment with the colleagues. We took a break from intensive work. And the third thing is that the coach was inspiring. And then what did you learn? What did you get out of it? Was not much. And I was even more surprised when after 1 month we made again a feedback session, and we found out that they don't even remember the title and the content of the session. And that's how I started to differentiate. In the beginning, I started to differentiate skills and behaviors, because skills are top level, more macro, and behaviors are the underlying behaviors behind these skills. And I found out later on that behind these behaviors, there are thoughts, there are emotions, there are dysfunctional actions, etc. And that's how it started in the beginning. I saw how companies invest, how it was an urgent topic, and versus the impact that was low, I wanted to do something about it. Every entrepreneur starts with this injustice feeling, let's say, that we need to enhance something. We can't accept the current reality, the actual reality. And that's how I started working on it. And also, personally, I had this will to always to share knowledge, to train myself, to grow collectively, and that's how it led me to Psynarios. And maybe a last thing also, it's about the right meetings at the right timing. I met with the right people that shared with me the same interest and the same passion for the topic, and this meeting created Psynarios.
That's
Very
fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much. So it seems like almost if you circle back, the problem is that people would take all the training, and we're all very well aware of that. And there's lots of resources go into finding the right trainers, coaches to come in to spend time with the teams. But it seems like for them, it was refreshing change of pace from the usual day-to-day work that they do, but they didn't really get anything of tangible value that they can bring back into the workplace when they return. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, it's correct, and especially sometimes they got things. There are excellent coaches, and that make you discover new ways of thinking, new areas of exploration. But sometimes there is no anchoring. We need to complement this approach with an approach with a methodology that doesn't consume much time. That you can reproduce to complement this efficient coaching. So there are two types, I would say. There is, and most of sessions that I've seen focus on the same topics. And there are some behaviors that we always forget. I will tell you, for example, protecting own needs is sometimes forgotten, especially that in our current society today, we have what I call sometimes the dictatorship of being positive. You need to be you need to be optimistic, even if the reality is not giving you signs, positive signs, and that you can stick to reality to advance, to enhance
And
things,
And
etc.
may I add, sometimes at work, if you do express too much, what would count in the textbooks as negative attitude, you get labeled not a team player, although you're just bringing up potentially problems that right there in front of us. You get maybe a little bit even shunned away in the teams if you're not buying into this positivity first attitude.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I would guess that the training haven't changed that much in the last 10 years. And so is it fair to say that conventional training still do not focus on changing behavior as an outcome, but rather than just giving content which doesn't always serve the purpose?
Yes, I separate three types of training. There are trainings for, there are four even: sales, for marketing, for motivations, and for relationships. And the part of relationships is very complex. We use inadequate methodologies to work on it, meaning that, for example, when I train for sales, it's more transactional, it's more short term. I need to inspire, I need to show inspiration, to be straight to the point, clear, etc. While in relationships, it's another logic, and it's about consistency over time with yourself and with all others around you. And it's also very around values, not short-term oriented. It's also about giving on the short term to receive on a longer term. And this mechanism is difficult for human being, because sometimes we are driven mainly by emotion and by unpleasant emotions. I see many leaders saying that they are solution oriented, and in reality sometimes they are being impulsive. They are taking hasty decisions just to get rid of this unpleasant emotion and say it's sorted out, while in reality it's a short-term solution that doesn't give results on a longer term. And these items, I started to be aware of it with the human complexity, and that's how we digged about the links between emotions, thoughts, reality interpretation, mental resilience, openness, and also how to read the context, how to observe the context, when to activate behaviors, etc. Because most of the problems can be solved only with listening, with regulating emotion, with collective thinking, and not finding solutions.
So, and what is your solution? Let's jump into what you guys do at Scenarios. So, what differentiates your product? And if you could explain it in simple terms, what your product is about.
Our product is about reflecting to oneself in complex situations where I have high stakes, have emotions, I have also little time to react, and see what are the psychological obstacles that make me lose my way, not achieve my results, and especially have impact on my mental health. So these are the three items that we work on: how to identify my own psychological obstacles, such as denial, judgment, avoidance, victimization, also aggressiveness sometimes, and understand in which context I produce them, with which intensity, and especially how do I compare with the rest of the world. Because if someone asks me before scenarios about empathy, about openness, about change, all these definitions, I know them in the dictionary in reality, and I don't know them from in reality with actions, how to translate it into actions. And then with scenarios we understand how are we advanced in each behaviors, what is our capacity to produce these behaviors in a timely manner, and especially how do we compare with our colleagues, with and also with professionals in general. Behind this methodology of, let's say, measurement of behaviors, observability of behaviors, and development of behaviors, there is a statistical model representing the reality, following a normalized curve, a standard curve, capturing human uniqueness, meaning that, for example, I will give you on 500 managers, we have no managers that make the same choices in the same scenarios. I didn't explain this part. Maybe we have role plays with avatars where we make choices, and every time we understand how do we measure in each behavior and what are our areas of improvement and how we can commit to get there.
This is great. And also, there's something that obviously, because we had a conversation about this before, about what you do, guys, and really in depth conversation about the product you've created. What I liked very much is the fact that it allows people to do it in their own time and it's very little effort. So, can you tell us a little bit more about this side of it? Because I hear a lot how you need to change, you need to do this, it has to be very dramatic, it has to be very high impact. But from looking at what you guys are doing, is you're focusing more on a sort of like a lower impact on your day-to-day life, but with a high outcome, it seems.
Absolutely. It's based on marginal gains. I gain every week more awareness. I understand how to improve my constructive behaviors production, my constructive thoughts production. And it's role plays of 15 minutes every week that I can access on mobile or on desktop. I have, it becomes a pleasant journey and a pleasant ritual every week to understand how do I behave in common situation and realistic situations, and how do I compare. And in reality, we discover that we make unconscious behaviors. Sometimes we produce dysfunctional behaviors that are just unconscious. We also produce them sometimes because it's the only way that we experienced before, while observing our parents, while observing our first manager, while observing our clients. And the third item is how do we, let's say, sometimes we try to protect ourselves and we fall into denial. We know that this is a dysfunctional behavior, but we don't want to face the truth. Either ways, Scenarios makes the manager face face and acknowledge even these dysfunctional behaviors. And the most difficult part is to commit managers, thanks to the quality of the content, to the scientific methodology, to make them commit to improve. We tell them, basically, you are here. This is how you compare with the others. This is where you can go. And this is how we will take you there, through individualized path that targets your own areas for improvement. And today they commit with us. We have 89% completion rate over a year. We have a session per week, and it's 89% is really very high compared to market standards. And we have satisfaction over a year of 4.3 out of 5 based on 8,000 plus ratings. This means that we took the complexity of human psychological science and behavioral science, and we made it simple, accessible, and especially linked to the reality of managers. Knowing that today we apply this methodology with future managers, senior managers, mid managers, and also executive committees with beneficiary users in 11 countries.
And this number suggests like 4.3 out of 5 and 89% of responding rate, right?
Yes.
suggests that probably you're doing something right. And one of those things I see is it only takes 15, and managers are busy, so it only takes 15 minutes per week. Then it's consistent, and then also it's you kind of can't compare yourself, and you work on scenarios, real life scenarios, where it's not some abstract thing, an abstract psychological notion, but it's actual case studies and scenarios and behaviors that they can kind of try it on themselves, right? And given that, like, what do you think, are there any other success factors that make your product so high in demand among the customers that you're working with?
Yes, there is a collective dynamics also where we realign perceptions within the company, because today most of communication, conflict, change problems are linked to different perceptions. What is the directive for you is maybe aggressive for me. What is a judgment for you is just an observation for me. And everyone lives in his brain in reality and challenging little but not much. Generally more listening than challenging to the thoughts pushed by the brain. So what we make today is this realignment of perceptions and ultimately of cultures. And I think the most difficult part is to convince a human and a manager, even more difficult, that what he has been doing for years and what he makes with very good intentions, with his experience, is probably not the best way of doing things. And this is very hard today to make. And we see it when we observe. Sometimes we ask managers to observe in demo, testing new products, etc. They are never convinced. When they make a choice, they see that it's not the right one. They are even angry sometimes. They are even angry. They say, it can't be different. This is the right way of doing things. And then they have analysis. And analysis is produced by psychiatrists and psychotherapists. So it's very precise. It's very nuanced. It's without judgment. There is no success and failure, no good and bad, also positive and negative. It's all linked to reality. And this makes managers convinced and especially commit to develop themselves. Because generally, when we identify an area for improvement, we tend to trivialize it, to say, it's not important, I have too many things to do, I do it on purpose, or it's just my personality. And here, we convince them to make the way with us and to improve this. We tell them what they could have missed while behaving this way, what they could improve in their relationship with others, but especially in their relationship with themselves. And this point is very important, because what we tell managers is that humans spend a lot of time and energy to understand the other's thoughts, intentions, needs, etc. And in reality, we don't spend enough time to understand ours. And it's a much more efficient process when it takes less energy and makes a higher impact when I reflect to myself. And also I have the right to say no. I have the right to take harsh decisions. I have the right also to see that the current state of things is negative and commit to enhance it. And it's not only about just how do I look, how do I seem, how I'm perceived, but more about how I really am. And this point is very important, because we realign the image that perceived with the reality of yourself inside, with your inner world. And this realignment is very healthy for well-being and for daily mental health. It's very useful not to wear this mask, to have a character at work and to be a different person. We realign them, and we help managers, instead of changing the way others think about them to communicate, etc. We change the way they think. We try to improve the way they think, where we have dysfunctional thoughts, etc. And these make them more comfortable, more authentic, more sincere, and especially make the choices that really serve their interests and the collective interests at the same time, while aligning both.
This is very interesting, Dali. Thank you so much for sharing so much about this. I have so many questions and so many interesting thoughts, because there's this aspect of wearing masks and falling into a certain role, let's say as a manager, because we have seen it as an example sometime in the past, and we assumed straight away that this is how you should behave. So it seems like what you do is that you're encouraging self-development and reflection, which is incredibly powerful. And from leadership perspective, it seems that, and again, comes up in our conversations here with our guests so many times, is that when it comes to this, you have to start from yourself first. So before you go outwards, you have to go inwards. So it seems that your product gently encourages people to do that. The reason I'm saying gentle is because in coaching as well, we see there's sometimes lots of resistance into reviewing our old patterns, admitting the things that may not be maybe the best way of dealing with things. And we fall back into them thinking, oh, that's just who I am. So this is great that it sort of creates that space that people can do that. And mostly that they encourage to do that. And secondly, that comes up a lot is this lack of play in our day-to-day life. And we had quite a few people mention that, how important it is. And from what I'm seeing from your product, it's a role play sort of situation. So it is a play. So this short moments of you putting yourself in a certain scenario and seeing how things are without judgment, without sort of worry that somebody's going to mark them, down or up, or you did good or bad, just being who you are.
Yeah, thank you, Anastasia. Really, the impact is there. It's about changing mentalities, changing mindsets in real life, and especially the most, I would say, difficult part again is to commit managers to this development. Awareness is one thing, and change is another thing. But commitment between these two steps is very difficult to gain, especially with experienced managers that have sometimes set thoughts and they think their experience reflects the reality, while generally it reflects part of the reality. What I want to say about this maybe is when we were, the example is for about kids. When we see kids, we observe them, we see that they sit in very strange positions, stand in very strange positions that we can't reproduce as adults because we are not that flexible physically anymore. And as experienced professionals also, we lose this psychological flexibility. There are also some behaviors linked to accepting difference, to embracing change, to thinking constructively that we lose with time and with experience. I know that experience is always perceived as positive. It's positive. It can help us to better organize ourselves, anticipate, gain methods, etc. But in reality, also, while developing this background, we lose some of our flexibility. And the idea is to gain back this child capacity of being the best negotiator, the most open, and being flexible with the context.
Yeah. And I can see where resistance also may come from is, especially if you're a successful manager, it means you're doing something right.
Yeah.
So why to change something that is working? But the problem with that approach is, how do you define successful management, right? I mean, it's your perception. And B, things are changing, the work culture is changing, the work environment may be changing. So those approaches that used to work 10 years ago may not work again. The question I have, Dali, is in your experience, like for how long do managers need to be engaged in your program? You mentioned 1 year, but is there a minimum time where you can observe long-lasting changes, or is there some statistical evidence to that? This is one question. And second question, you mentioned that you are present in 11 countries. Are there any cultural differences that you experienced and you don't mind sharing with us? Like, how do they affect the work that you do?
Yes, absolutely. I agree totally with you on the first point on managers that consider that their experience is successful, so they don't need to change anything, but they don't know that they could have done better. For example, once I pitched a CEO of a large company of 3,000 employees, and he told me, emotion, I don't care about it anymore. I have more than 20 years of experience. Emotion doesn't exist for me. He didn't get the thought that popped in my mind was, this is emotional cancellation. And it's very harmful for the person because the example that I take is it's nuclear residuals that you put under the ground. And one day it can blow. And this is the way some I would say managers that didn't change mindset with time think that what was successful before can continue to be with new generations, with new contexts. About our methodology, after 5 weeks, you start to commit. For us, we notice that those who are stable for 5 weeks continue almost till the end of the program. This is a very important date for us, the fifth week. After, I would say, the improvement we start to see it starting from 10 weeks, and we start to anchor it starting from 14 weeks. From 14 weeks, we see that behaviors developed with the measures, and we see that there is stabilization. Because in our path, also, what is very difficult to do, was very difficult to do in our research, was to increase the level of difficulty gradually to capture the improvement while increasing the level of difficulty slowly. So after 14 weeks, we see a significant improvement, and then uh, uh, we are, I think, all very far from our full potential in terms of behaviors, really very far. And I can see it from the scores in the measurement phase. In the beginning, we have a measurement phase, and the average is 48%, which is very low. It changes with time, but it's more between always 45 and 50, which is very low for experienced managers, for CEOs, for senior managers. And we see this progress. What I tell managers is that this 48% is what they learned from their experience, their culture, also their job, their sector, also expertise, and what they brought with them in their personality. So with all of this, we get 48% average, meaning that we can really make huge progress, and we have programs over several years, and the more we can increase difficulty, the more we can improve. And you guess that in the first program, it's not the hardest one, because it needs to be accessible. We need to start somewhere to adopt the methodology and to improve. Now, about the culture, this is a touchy topic, I don't want to categorize any cultures, so I will not name them, but I will say country one, country two. Okay, so in country one, we found out that protecting own needs is not is against the values of the culture. I think that you need always to ask for things indirectly. For example, you are in an open space, you want to open the window, you don't ask, can I open the window, or I want to open the window? You will say, do you want to open the window, guys? And they will tell you, no, we don't want. And you get angry. You say, I wanted to open the window and you told me, you said no. So this is in the first culture, and there is resistance about this protecting. And this creates a lot of problems because there is no protection of own needs and no expression, especially of own needs. And then no one understands what the others need, want, and it leaves room for interpretation. And with interpretation, there are more gaps, more conflicts, and lack of interest alignment. In the second culture, what we saw is what I would call excessive modesty. It's never valuing my own efforts and always saying that it's the team, the group. When I receive a compliment, I will say, no, I didn't anything. And especially, I will probably think that the other person wants to get something out of it. That is more flattery than sincere compliment. So it depends on the cultures. There are also other, as we don't have sometimes the critical number to get trends, we don't want to generalize. And if we will find out later, how do these cultures compare? How do sectors also compare? Sectors are very different. Industry is very different from banking. Also, pharma industry is different from classic industry. So there are very many differences depending on the culture, the job nature, and the sector.
Thank you for sharing this. This is fascinating because I think in this multicultural work environment that a lot of us work in must be very crucial aspect that nobody wants to name, like you said, because you don't want to say people from this culture behave that way or from the other differently. And this is when I feel it's almost like we unspoken thing that happens. Everybody knows it's going on. Everybody knows it's there, but nobody talks about Nobody talks about it, and everybody pretends to that it doesn't exist, which I feel a lot of the times causes a lot of harm, because I think if we were to accept that we're different, because we are, and find these ways that we operate, what motivates us, what we value, if we could only tap into those openly, I think the results would be much better. And like you said, there would be less resentment, there will be less conflict in the workplace. Thinking about the program and how multifaceted it is, so it can affect people in many ways at work, what sort of changes do you see personally once people start using the program? Not the company, not on the company level, but on an individual level. What changes do you observe?
Yes, main changes are less projecting failure, crisis, conflicts on the others or on the environment, and taking more ownership of the consequences of our actions, and believing more that I can have an impact and change my real life. Instead of saying, for example, it was not a good timing, I was not lucky on this, the others are not open to listen to my ideas, maybe I didn't convince well. Instead of saying that my manager is not understanding me, I can say I can explain better or more. We work on this. You are take ownership of your life and commit with small actions to improve it. And commit to try, not commit to change it, because you have no power on the consequences. And this is a central point in scenarios. And we see it even in the program implementation. Especially companies focus on the result, they don't focus on the process. While the process is much more important than the result, much more important. And the process drives the result. For example, I will tell you that companies focus much on crisis, conflicts, change, and they discard the most important behaviors that are understanding emotions, that are listening effectively, that are protecting own needs. And these small behaviors impact the skill set and the complex behaviors because they are the starting point of getting there. And this, we saw it with behavioral correlations, with impact of those that understand their emotions after 5 weeks, after 10 weeks, on their ultimate scores, etc. So this is central, really. And we see the more the HR director and the CEO trust us on our program and don't try to make it according to their own short-term objectives, the better results they get. This is a central point, really, to understand that behaviors it's a universe. It's a universe where behaviors complement each other, cancel each other, and sometimes it's hard for humans to combine two opposite behaviors, such as empowering and asking the person to be reliable for something at the same time, and at the same time protecting own needs and expressing empathy. These are very difficult behaviors to combine, and the list is very long, and also to generalize, because the brain wants to arrive to conclusions, wants to say, I'm not good at this, or I'm very good at this. While the reality is never extreme. It's very nuanced, and we help managers to capture this nuance and say, in these situations, I tend to do this, so I'll observe myself to confirm in which exact situations I do it, and I think that I can improve it, and this is how I will try to commit to change things. We release the pressure on getting a better person, giving everything all the time, and trying to be at our best version, and to accept that we are not perfect, but we can commit to become more constructive, let's say. It's not even better, more constructive, to reach our objectives and to feel better. It's very important to feel good, to say that I feel harmony. I feel that I'm convinced about what I'm doing, that I'm producing behaviors that help me to advance, and not just an illusion of winning, doing things to be validated by others, to be ego, to do it because the society wants this, because it's the rule, but more with high convictions and commitment.
I think the only follow-up here is we are multifaceted. We are not, when we're going to work, it's not a different version of us that goes in there. We all go in there with our own complexities and baggage and, anything that goes on in our life. Question is, does this program that you have created, does it have any impact on people outside work? Because obviously at work, we can see that there's loads of shifts that happen. Have you observed any of those shifts to be carried into, outside work, into people's daily life?
Absolutely. We have many, many feedbacks and stories about that, about improving couple relationships. We had a manager who told us, I improved my relationship with my teenager at home. We had so many conflicts, and now I understood what I was doing, maybe what I could have improved, and I worked on this. So really, it's an approach that makes us committed to change, to development. And I had many other stories. For example, I have a client who told me I figured out that I was egoistic. I was always told by family members, colleagues that I was egoistic, and I was saying, no, you are judging me. You just see me in few situations and you conclude that I'm egoistic. And then he started the program and found out that he's overprotecting, protective, and also sometimes too much focused on resistant, doubting the intentions of others, etc. And he committed to this change.
It's amazing.
This-
That sounds like
this-
from every aspect that improvements are happening if you commit to it.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
these are nice side effects to have, right, from your product on people's personal lives. Earlier, Dali, you mentioned that trainings, they don't have long-lasting effects. And in coaching, we also observe that not all changes, they stick. And sometimes by the end of 12 months, certain changes, they're gone for a number of reasons. But how do you ensure that the changes that you achieve, they're long-lasting?
Because we don't work on communication and we don't work on behaviors. We work on the thoughts that drive behaviors, the profound, I would say, schemas that deliver these behaviors. And this is where what we focus on. We don't focus on mainly how you do things, but more on why you do them. What does it bring you when you do this? And what is the way to do it? It's really a deep, I would say, understanding of oneself and a deep reflection that makes us understand. When I act today, I say, okay, why I'm acting this way, and why I've decided this, and why I want to do this, and this makes me reflect to the thoughts that I have. And I see that many thoughts are inherited from culture, are inherited from education, etc. And this makes me turn the unconscious to a committed and action that makes sense, that is meaningful for my reality and makes me closer to my objectives. This is the main aspect we focus on. Doing things over at least a year increases anchoring, and also a human brain and development requires this repetition, this regularity in development. And also we cover behaviors from different sides. I will not unveil all our secrets. We see it from different perspectives, meaning that the mind at the end has view on a behavior from 300 at almost 360 perspective, and gets exactly what is openness in each context.
But do you measure the results? Let's say you said you measured in the beginning, but at the end of year 1 or year 2, do you still measure and kind of relay back to the client what are the measurements and what do they suggest?
Yes, it's a weekly measurement. So you can see how you are developing every week. And this is the statistical model and the scientific background behind, about having this consistency in the method and in the measures that make you reflect to the progress you are realizing every week. Measuring these marginal gains, the way of doing things is changing.
Great. Personally, for me, I have a little bit of a competitive streak. For me, seeing the improvement would probably work really well. It would encourage a lot. So what is the highest score? Because you said, well, firstly, people come in and their score is around 45, 50%. So is it even plausible to achieve 100%? That's just my personal curiosity.
No, it's impossible. The highest score that we have, I don't recall exactly, but I know that we have 72. I know that we have 74%, but I don't think the maximum is much higher. 100%, I can tell you, it scores follow a standardized curve. So the 100% and the 0% are very low. And we have more 0% than 100% in the beginning of the program, and we have little more 100% than 0% per week at the end of the program. Getting 100% even in 1 week is extremely hard and rare. It's really rare to get 100%, and this is the difficulty of our work, to have a statistical model that reflects the reality and overall by user, by weekly program, overall program, and also by client, user, overtime, etc. And this is what we do in reality is okay, there are these role plays, there is the content, but the hardest work is on the analysis and the measurement. And this is what we do. It's linked to the behavioral psychology. What it says is that a behavior has three characteristics: observable, it's measurable, and it's evolutive with time. But this is what we do over these three axes. I also appreciated something with our users. It happened twice. We had 0% over a week. Generally, we are not happy, and we tend to question the methodology. And we received very good feedback, saying approximately, "Thank you for the method, for the situation. I didn't know how to manage these kind of situations, and now I understand better what I could have missed in the past."
So it seems like with any human, we can never be 100%, and sometimes even when we're at 0%, it doesn't mean that we failed. It could actually mean that we gained a very valuable lesson, like what you just said.
Absolutely.
Yes, and there is more room to learn. As a coach, Dali, I have to ask you an existential question. Given how effective your program is, and because you do it, you have scale advantage, right? So per employee, it's probably much cheaper than doing trainings or hiring personal coaches and whatnot. Do you foresee that your product will replace coaching? And what are your views? Like, can your product coexist with coaching and therapy on a corporate level?
Yes, for sure. No, we are not replacing coaches or therapists. We are making their work easier and more impactful. In reality, we want to create a program now. We are creating a program for salesmen, for also for students, and we want to develop the same program for coaches, to certify coaches with the Psynarios methodology, and so they can use the role plays and the program with their trainees. The idea is to say, a human needs a hybrid approach. He needs a human to discuss with, to push, I would say, the reflection, etc. And also he needs a safe space to reflect alone, because it's hard to reveal oneself in front of other humans, and sometimes it's hard to reveal what you think, what you want with yourself. Even with ourselves, we tend to fall in denial and avoid this. So the idea is to combine the two approaches, and mainly also to grant more consistency in the method. It can also help the coach to put, I would say, depend on the experience of the coach, but I think for many coaches, it can bring more structure, separating what is behavioral from skills, what is related to thoughts, what is related to emotions, because there is a mix today from what I see on the market. We are mixing many things, and we are mixing organizational with managerial, with behavioral, and motivational even, while these are very different human aspects at work. And what we want to do is to bring this clarity. There is no high impact without clarifying and keeping consistency. And sometimes we found ourselves confronted to this question. Sometimes managers tell us, okay, last week I had a training where they told us you need always to be positive, because when you are positive, you make things happen. This is what we are trying to work on, to keep this consistency and to have a balanced also speech. But definitely this is a powerful tool for coaches, and I think both experiences are very enjoyable. Group experience with a coach, one-on-one with a coach, and also reflecting with a machine, I would say, with a computer or mobile phone, to say, okay, no one is seeing what I'm doing. I'm free to choose, and I can fail. No one will judge me in this context.
I would imagine, I guess, if your organization uses both, or multiple together with scenarios. When the time comes for a coaching session, if somebody is used to now to has this sort of a habit of self-reflecting, allowing for that gray area, allowing for that possibility that they might need to improve in certain places, I would imagine the results out of that coaching session would be much more powerful than if you were getting a person that not really maybe ever used self-reflection as a tool, never really given a thought that things could be different. And then that's a much longer journey from coaching point of view, from experience to have with a client to reach the results they want.
Yes, absolutely. And especially we know that in a group coaching session, if there is one trainee that didn't take time to reflect on own behaviors, to understand skills, etc., it will be limiting for limiting the impact for the whole group. So this is, I would say, yes, this is the positioning that we want to have. It's pre-coaching and post-coaching to maximize the impact of the coach during the session and after the session.
And this is reassuring for us coaches because we get all those existential questions, whether AI is going to replace coaching, or now Psynarios is another, kid on the block, and whether it's going to, because especially if it's that effective, but it's reassuring to hear that, you don't view it as a replacement, but rather than a supplementary thing. And it's a, tool on its own, very effective, right? So it's, yeah.
You have worked with so many organizations and you had such great results. If I was to walk into a company that uses scenarios on any random Tuesday or Wednesday, what difference would I see if everybody was using it?
I think the coach will be very challenged. In reality, when a coach enters into a room with managers that practice scenarios for 1 year, they will have clarity in their ideas, in their choices, and they will question a lot techniques, how you can apply them, when you can apply them, how they compare with other techniques, when do I need to use techniques, and when do I need to be very, I would say, improvising and being 100% myself. The second thing is that they will be less judgy and more receptive to some concepts. They will understand that huge changes, start from very small ones, and they will adopt more the techniques that the coach is suggesting. Because sometimes we see coaches is explaining something, and trainees say, even for scenarios, sometimes it's the same. They say, okay, this will not change my life. It's not applicable to my reality. These are details. And in reality, this makes the difference. So they'll be much more open to receive your advices, and also quite challenging and expecting consistency. The commitment of 89% over a year is about consistency. When you start first day and you get in your individualized path, no matter the role play that you will receive, you will always find that it's consistent with what was said before.
Yeah, but I would challenge you, Dali, on your first point, but I think it's probably topic for another conversation, is because typically for us coaches, working with clients who have very high self-awareness, it's much more productive, actually. So maybe it's my anecdotal experience, but I see less resistance and actually more results and deeper results with clients who are self-aware, who do lots of self-work. So, but again, this is a topic for another conversation, and I guess we can spend more time there.
Absolutely. And for me also, I just wanted to add, Dali, what you just described sounds like if I was to look into this, I would look into the organization that has the leaders and managers are self-aware, they're more open, they are out there trying to improve themselves and others. And I think that sort of environment is exactly what everybody wants to work in.
Absolutely. They will have less resistance to what you can explain and understand you better. And they will at the same time try to challenge, to understand better when to use the techniques, how to use them, and also how to get the most of what you are saying.
Thank you so much, Dali. This was a very interesting conversation, and it's very close to our hearts as coaches, because what you guys do is an incredible work. What also another important factor is you can cover so many people at the same time. So you have this advantage of the scale, and it's also science-based and scientifically proven. I wanted to wish you good luck, and hopefully next time we talk is going to be more than 11 countries that you cover and more success stories that you can share with us.
Thank you very much, Khurshid. Thank you, Anastasia, for the questions, for this interesting and deep discussion. And hopefully we'll have many more in the future.
Thank you, Dali.